Two. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pain to Purpose podcast, episode 11, with wonderful Andre Mills here with us today. We're going to be diving into just having a really good conversation. Andre is one of my very much good friends, mentors. He's an amazing coach, healer. He is a best-selling author, a self-love coach, and a mindfulness healing trainer to entrepreneurs, influencers, and those who seek radical results in their personal and professional life. So I just have to say thank you, Andre, for being here. And how are you today?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hearing you say that, it's like it makes me sound like, who is this guy? It sounds cooler than who I actually am. So
Oh my goodness. Of course, always humble. So we were just having a really beautiful conversation around uh, what this pandemic has really given us. And I feel like this is the difference between having a what they call a victim mindset, where life is just happening to you, compared to a growth mindset. And so having a growth mindset, looking at these things that happen in our world and that happen in our life, that this is an opportunity for us. So Andre, how has having a growth mindset, looking at like these things that seem like such horrible experiences and situations, how has having a growth mindset and looking at it slightly different really helped you get to where you're at today?
yeah. It's kind of like when you look at these situations that show up in our lives, like life is going to happen, right? Like it's always going to happen. Things are going to happen to us, but it's never so much about when they happen to us. We have two options in that point: is either to complain about it and gripe about it and say, why does this have to happen to me? Or the other option is we can actually do something about it and figure out a way to look from within. We can't change the world as far as what's going on with the pandemic. As much as we would like to just press a button and make it all just magically disappear, we can't, it's not going to happen. So the most effective way to really create any type of change, as we all know, is to always create change from within. And ultimately, how do we change our perception on what is showing up around us and not seeing it as it's happening to me, but it's like the saying, but why is this happening for me? Like, for an example, we were kind of discussing earlier about it, like you said, and one of the things for me specifically, it really allowed me with the company that I have to be able to kind of take a step back and figure out, what are we actually supposed to be doing here? Because when you don't have a pandemic, I think we spend most of our time trying to compete, trying to go, because we don't want to get in last place. But when a pandemic happens, it's like the race stops for everyone. And so you really have no choice but to just stop and really think about, okay, everything that we've been doing up until now, is that the most effective way to complete our mission and our vision for what we're doing? For me specifically, not that anything we were doing was bad or wrong, but it really allowed me to get grounded and say, okay, how do we effectively achieve our mission for what we want to do on a global scale? How can we make that happen in the most effective way possible? And when it hit me, it went all the way back to the solution being like social media, right? And expanding on social media, creating more virtual products, figuring out, because at the end of the day, we're an event-based company, so we do events. For those who don't know, yes, we will always have our events, but if we really want to reach the masses, the quickest way to reach somebody is virtually and digitally. And yet we were not doing that as much as we should have. And so a pandemic really has you take a step back and say, all right, we can't do in-person events. So how do we reach the masses, right? And then of course the solution was, Oh, social media, virtual, which sounds like common sense. But again, when you're in the middle of the race, you don't think about those things. When you're in the middle of the race, all you're thinking about is, going forward, but you never stop to just stop and okay and rest and say, all right, how can we make this better? And so I think for anybody, it's all about stopping, really checking in with yourself and figuring out a way to become a better version of yourself. And then figuring out a way to uh, how to catapult the best version of yourself out into the world and how to make all of that, what we call horrible happening to us, how to make it less horrible, as you can say. So,
Right, right. Oh yeah, that's huge. And I know that self-love has so much to do with that. I know when we're going through a we're going through contrast, or in other words, we're going through fear, or we're going through some type of trauma, or just a lot's coming up for us, something always that's always there is that silence, that space within you, your heart that keeps you beating. Self-love is huge, and a lot of people talk about self-love and like how important it is. And I've even heard, people in my life like, yeah, I love myself, but then they're like putting themselves into these toxic situations. And ultimately, I've also heard the phrase like, you don't get what you want, you get what you think you deserve. So I'd love to know just what self-love really is to you, and how it's shifted and changed your life and to becoming the person that you are today and transforming lives all around the globe.
yeah, yeah. Like it's crazy because I think one of the biggest things that I've discovered, because I get exactly what you mean. I get a lot of people to say, well, I do affirmations about loving myself. I meditate to love myself. I go get my nails done. I maybe I go eat food to also show that I love myself. Maybe going hunting, going camping, whatever, right? All these different things we can do. What I've learned, because I've done all of that, plus more, except getting my nails done, but what I realize is though is that self-love, the epitome of that is self-discipline. And self-discipline is sometimes ugly. It is sometimes difficult. It can be challenging, and it's not always going to be pretty. But it's knowing that you love yourself so much that you're willing to even suffer temporarily for a greater reward. But I love myself so much that I'm willing to tell someone no when I really want to go to this party. I really want to go out and I want to see this. I want to go on this date. Maybe I want to eat a certain food, but yet I'm telling myself I want to, shape my body to look a certain way by a certain time. Maybe I really want to drink that drink, or I want to smoke this or smoke that, but I'm telling myself I don't want to, right? It's having the self control to literally stay committed to the vision for the long term reward, even though temporarily it is going to suck. But I love myself that much to where I'm willing to suffer. Like I'm literally willing to feel pain for a short period of time because I know that 2 months from now, 3 months from now, a year from now, if I don't allow myself to suffer temporarily, I will suffer for the rest of my life. Because then I got to look back and say, I wish I just disciplined myself. I just allowed myself to be grounded and commit to those habits that we don't like to commit to, like waking up early in the morning. But we know that if we don't do it, it will suck for eternity. So it's having an understanding that self love is not necessarily all about just being nice. It's not about just necessarily sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes there will be some speed bumps and some rocks being thrown at you left and right, but it's because you love yourself that much. You are okay with experiencing that temporarily, once again, for a greater reward. And I think when we can really not just intellectually understand that, but internally feel that and know it within the core of our belief, that is that is the epiphany of self-love. And when we really know that and believe it, every challenge that we call a challenge no longer becomes a challenge. It becomes our greatest gift, because we know that waking up at 4 in the morning, it's not a challenge, it's a gift, because we know what that's going to do for us 2, 3, 4 years from now down the road.
Right. Wow, I love that. I feel like that's such a beautiful like shift in perspective too, that that self-love is having self-discipline, like cuz I know I've like, oh, like, I get that little high when I'm like I'm about to go like buy myself some food, like I'm a foodie, you know what I mean? And like yes, like that can absolutely be a form of self-love, but then when you really get down to it, like it's temporary, and we so many people, we we don't think about what's sustainable. It's just like what's going to get me out of like, or what's going to make me feel better in this moment. That's so many
Right.
people in our society, but like, if you want to shift and transform your life, you have to shift your thinking and really look at, what's going to sustain you and long term effect, make it make this greater effect on your life. So that's huge. I love that so much.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, it's like the because I think sometimes we also ask the question is, well, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I not do this? Is it okay to do this? I think how we answer that for ourselves is that we have to really we can't begin the process of self-love without having a clear understanding of where we're trying to go. We have to have a clear cut vision for our life. If it's a relationship, we have to have a clear cut vision in that relationship if we call ourselves wanting to commit to that relationship. If it's a business, we have to have a clear cut vision for that business if we call ourselves wanting to truly commit to that business. Because without a clear cut vision, then when we get hit with the self question of, well, is it okay for me to eat this piece of cake? Is it okay for me to go to this party? Is it okay for me to spend this on the bar tonight with my friends? Is it okay to do this? The only way to truly answer that is to sit there and ask ourselves, does this support my vision? If the answer is no, then you know your answer. And if the answer is yes, then knock yourself out. But I am a firm believer in, let's say, for an example, let's take eating that piece of cake, right? Um, I will treat myself to ice cream and cake and everything else in the world because I'm a foodie as well. But the thing is, I think you do have to get into a position where you have retrained your mind to be intentional about what you're consuming or what it is that you're doing. Because if I'm just eating this cake for pleasure purposes, then I'm actually defeating the whole purpose of commitment. If I'm eating the cake as a way to reward myself, then at that point, eating the cake becomes very intentional and actually even empowering, even. So sometimes it might take committing to not eating the cake for an extended period of time just to retrain your mind and to really getting an understanding as to why did you want the cake to begin with. Is it for pleasure? Is it because it tastes good? Or is it because I want to treat myself? And if it's because of when you want to treat yourself, then at that point, like I said, the cake becomes very empowering and it does serve your purpose. But if it's just because, well, I really want a cake, it tastes so good, I gotta have it, that cake has control over you still. That cake still has some form of control over you. And so that's why I say sometimes it might take temporary suffering, but when you get into a position where you're finally like, okay, I no longer eat the cake for pleasure, but I eat it because it serves me. I eat it as a reward. I mean, everything after that becomes empowering. Everything after that becomes empowering.
Mm, wow. And it's so true. And like a big question that I have for you right now is, what if you aren't clear on what your vision is? Like, what would you suggest as like a tip or a trick for how you can really get clear on what it is that you want? Because I know when I'm on enrollment calls with clients, and I get to that point of asking them, like, what is it that you want to create? Like a lot of them will say like, I really don't know, because there's so
Right.
many people that are like, they're so invested into what they've known that even like getting out of that box of like what's even possible for me,
Right.
they're not even in that space. So how would you suggest someone that isn't clear on vision?
Right. Yeah, I think the first step is really understanding what vision is. See, a lot of times we feel like we have to have it all figured out, like cookie cut figured out. Like we have to know, is it going to be blue? Is it going to be red? Is it going to be rectangular? Or is it going to be a triangle? I don't think we need to know so much as, is it going to be a rectangle or triangle? But I think we do need to know, do we want it to even be a shape? We don't have to know exactly what shape specifically, but we have to know, do we want a shape, and do we want it to be a colorful, a color that we like? We don't have to know the exact color, because like we all have more than one favorite color. We all do. We all like two, three, or four, or five different colors, right? So it's like, at the end of the day, does it matter if your favorite dream car was your second favorite color? As long as you get your dream car, I'm sure that's all what that's going to really matter. So we don't have to ever have it so figured out till we know to a T what we want. But I think we have to start really reframing what vision is. And I think specifically it's having a clear understanding of what you want to feel and what you want to experience in those different domains of your life. So when I ask people, what kind of relationship do you want? I always ask them, when you think, and if they tell me, well, I don't know, or if they say, well, I want a guy or a girl to look like this or look like that, that makes this much money or has this kind of job, and I'm like, let me stop you right there, okay? Because I'm like, truth be told, if you're looking for the perfect person to have those perfect qualifications, you're never going to find them. Rather than focus on the detail of the person that you want, rather ask yourself, what do you want to experience with that person financially? Do you want to experience financial freedom? Cool, check. What do you want to experience with that person from a sexual perspective? What do you want to feel when you're with that person when it comes to a communicative perspective? What do you want to feel with that person when it comes to creating a legacy for the family? In business, same thing. If I ask them, what kind of business do you want? They say, I don't know. Well, what has you feel your best when you think of the word of owning a business or operating as an entrepreneur? And sometimes they'll tell me, well, I see myself, it feels good to help people. It feels good to be able to serve. And then we get even deeper. Okay, well, how would you like to help people? Well, and we get real deep into it. And after a while, it comes maybe down to the conclusion, well, I want to help homeless people. Okay, well, why do you want to help the homeless people? In what way could you see yourself helping the homeless people? Well, I think it'd be really cool to one day have like maybe like a mentorship program. All right, cool. So we're getting somewhere, right? So the more and the more we focus on the feeling of what someone wants to create, subsequently we'll get down to the details of what that vision might look like. And so I think it really just starts with, because again, if you even think of vision, technically vision is basically projecting a forward thinking, is projecting forward thinking out into the future, right? Is what we're make up in our minds, what we intellectually can see, even though we cannot physically see it yet. So the only way to intellectually see something in the future is to first feel it. We have to first be able to feel it. We have to be able to know, what does that feel like? Because for an example, I'm a life coach, a business strategist, a speaker, trainer, do all these different things. I do 4-day seminars. However, I started off as a youth motivational speaker about 6 years ago. So I knew I wanted to help people, right? But I wasn't so much worried about the specifics of who and how I did it. I just knew I wanted to help people. As years went on, it kind of shifted from working with kids to then working with college students. Then it went from being a motivational speaker to then being a trainer. Then I started working with adults. Then I went from being a trainer to being a coach. Then I started coaching like celebrities and athletes. And then it went from being a coach to, well, I'm a coach now. So that's, pretty much how I kind of got from there to there. But if you think about it, everything that I've been doing has everything to do with helping people. So it's all within the same category. It's just has different looks as time kind of goes on.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And I also love it because, or I really love it because our mind is the one with the limitations. So I feel like when we're getting into the feeling, you're entering the space of that quantum field of limitless possibilities where all possibilities exist, when you're just tuning into your feeling, whereas you can run into, and I think that's where a lot of people really go astray, is because they're thinking about what it is that they want, but their mind's the one with all the limitations and the limiting beliefs that are getting in their way. So I think that's huge, is really just like, how do you want to feel on a day-to-day basis? You know what I mean? How do you want to feel when you wake up in the morning? How do you want to feel when you go to bed at night, when you're kissing your partner, when you're hugging your kids, when you're working with your clients, when you're at your job? Like, how is it that you want to feel? Because I always say this to my clients, that it's never the person, place, or thing that we actually want. It's the feeling that it brings us.
Exactly.
So ultimately, if that feeling you get uh, from eating that piece of pie is going to be similar to, like right after a really nice walk, even like or a run, even just the endorphins that get let off in our brain, and the dopamine and the serotonin and all of that. Like, there's just these other things that we can do that invoke that feeling, and it's like, oh, it's not even the cake that I want, it's the feeling that it brings me. It gives me
Exactly.
that joy. But then we realize, like, oh, but that's like, the cake isn't giving me joy. I'm invoking and creating that joy myself.
Exactly. 100%. You said it perfectly. Because I was even going to add on to that, because again, when you go back to the word vision, it's about what do you want to experience later on? What do you want to experience in the future? So that might mean temporarily, again, because it could confuse people when I said earlier how, you may not feel like you don't want to, work out, or you feel like, I want to eat the cake, but you shouldn't. It's not so much about, it's about temporarily, you're probably not going to feel what you want to feel. But again, vision is not about right now anyway. That's the present moment. Vision is about the future. So it's about what do you want to feel in the future, which might mean that you might have to feel like crap right now because of yourself disciplining yourself, and you're reprogramming your body and your mind and your spirit to do things that's out of its comfort zone. So yes, you may not feel good right now, but you're only doing that because in the future of your vision, you want to feel that thing, which is bliss and joy and love and happiness and peace. So it may not feel peaceful right now, but it's that temporary sacrifice that is ultimately reshaping your future to feel exactly how you want to feel.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I've been learning so much about like motivation recently, because I've been getting told by spirit, get your booty up at 5 in the morning and meditate. And like, I love sleep, so it's been like, I'll wake up at 5, I'll meditate, and I end up going back to sleep, but at least there's like a little progress, you know what I mean? Progress equals happiness. So um but really, what I realized is how I talk myself out of it is, I'm like, oh, if I wake up at 5 and I didn't go to bed early enough, then I'm going to be tired the rest of the day. I'm not going to perform my best. I make up this whole story, and it ends up being like worse than just like, oh, I'm just not going to wake up at 5, wake up when I usually do, and then I'll have this day to get all this stuff done,
Mhm.
and so it's ultimately, it's funny how like our mind and our ego creating these stories that we talk ourselves out of what our heart is really calling for. And like I already know that when I'm thinking of my best self and myself, 3 to 5 years from now, like she's waking up at 5 in the morning, meditating and working out and creating, you know, and maybe not even 5, it's like 4 in the morning, and she's working out by 5. Like I know that that's what that woman's doing. And so if I'm like calling in to attract that life to me, it's time to like, start implementing these habits. So when it comes to vision, becoming that ultimate self, like what are the habits, these small things that you could be incorporating to start embodying that new person.
Right, exactly. Like 100%. Yeah, it's really powerful. One of the things that really helps me when it comes to, the example that you use, like waking up early in the morning. Um, I remember when I started recently, it was probably maybe about a month or two ago. I put myself like on a more on a very strict schedule, right? And so Monday through Saturday, I'm usually up at around 4 to 4:15, and then I'll go work out and do all this other stuff. But what I've noticed, same thing, like if for whatever reason, because I know for a fact if I'm gonna wake up at 4, I need to be in bed by 10. Like if I'm not in bed by 10, the more I stay up, the more of a struggle it might be to wake up. So, but what I've convinced myself is that once I'm up, I'm up. And it's only the first, and I've calculated it because I've been like really studying myself, and I would calculate, all right, when do I get out of this like I don't want to get out of bed mood? Like when do I surpass that? And it's usually after about 30 to 45 seconds. Usually 30 to 45 seconds. After that, if I'm out of bed, I'm usually great. And I'll do these different mantras also when I wake up immediately, whether I'm conscious of it or not, but I will force myself to smile. I'll wake up and I'll literally smile and I'll say, today is going to be a great day today. And what's so funny is that it actually, it actually, which I think is it has my body correlate to that smile. So when I smile, when I wake up, my body feels like a smile. And then I pop up and then I go to the bathroom and I put some cold water on my face and I'm just like, I'm alive, like I'm ready. Let's go. Let's make it happen. But I it definitely takes, reprogramming the body, reprogramming your physiology specifically to enjoy getting up, to really like it, to really love it and say, this is cool, this is fun, this is like an opportunity, this is a gift. But between 1 second and 29 seconds, it's the worst. I'm like, oh God, why did I agree to this? Like, and then after 30 seconds, I'm like, all right, let's do this. Let's make it happen.
Oh wow. Yeah, and it's like that 30 to 40 seconds, like the most crucial time, because it's like you're like the most, you're like in that theta state, and it's like you can just easily slip right back into your old patterns, so but it's in
Mhm.
that, like when we first wake up in the morning. I remember one coach told me one time, like, that if you're like hitting the snooze first thing in the morning, or like you wake up and you go back to sleep, you're starting your day procrastinating. And procrastinating is one big monster that I know so many people struggle with. I'm one of them that it like, really working to be super dialed in my day-to-day, in my practices and my business, and doing what I say I'm going to do. It's definitely work. So I have to ask you, what are some uh, what are some of those those self-love practices that you feel like are extremely powerful to do to really get into that space where, self-love equals, self-discipline. So like what comes to you, or what do you practice to really like get into that state and cultivate that self-love for yourself?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things that I do is, before kind of getting into like the mechanics on the mental side of it, um, I've convinced myself that people need me. And when I truly believe that there are people out there who need me, like anyone who is an entrepreneur, there are people out there that need you. Like people need us, even if they don't even know it. And there's a good chance they don't even know because they don't know what they don't know. As far as they know, what we do for people is unknown. So once I've convinced myself that people need me and that I am needed for somebody, it has me then get into this state that I have to be the best version of myself that I can possibly be so that I can be physically, mentally, and spiritually in shape to serve all of these people who need me. So, with that being said, once I've convinced myself of that, the physical mechanics of uh, enhancing the quality of my self love and embodying self love, one of them is working out. Working out is a really big one for me, working out. The other thing is also just making sure that I'm eating foods that actually support my energy and eating foods that support me and feeling good throughout the day. Because once again, people need me. If I'm eating certain foods that are very high in fats and very high in and sugar and very high when it comes to sodium and different things that might cause my mind and my body to feel sluggish, if I'm eating those types of foods at the very beginning of my day, then I already know my body well enough to where I know that I'm going to feel like crap throughout the rest of my workday. So I can't give people the best version of myself at that point. The other thing, another thing that I do is really journaling, um, journaling when it comes to like my what I'm thankful for and things that I'm grateful for. It really supports me in getting to a state of mind first thing in the morning where I'm able to really just, no matter what I experienced the day before, I can write down something that I know for a fact will make me smile because I'm so grateful for having it in my life. One of
Mm.
the things I realized, the more that I can smile, the better my experience will be. So even when I'm working out and I'm pushing myself past exhaustion, I mean, like I'm pushing myself. I'm lifting weights. I'm doing hit cardio. I'm exhausted. I'm dead. I'm tired. When I'm in those moments where I want to stop, where I don't want to do 2 more reps because my arms are hurting, I don't want to do 10 more jumping jacks because my legs are wobbling. I don't want to do any crunches because my abs are super sore and are burning. When I'm in those states, when I'm in that moment, it is the, I think, most empowering moment for anyone because when you're in that moment, you have two options: either quit or suck it up and make it happen and keep going. And for me to keep going when I don't want to do 10 more reps because it burns and it hurts, that right there alone tells me that, wow, look what you just did. You just pushed yourself past exhaustion. You just pushed yourself past the pain. You like, if that's not self love, I don't know what is. To be able to be in pain and yet you keep going and yet you keep moving forward past the pain, past the exhaustion, when it burns and when you want to quit, but yet you keep on going and you make it burn more and it burns more and you're purposely hurting at this point. You're telling yourself that, you know what, this pain will make me stronger. And the fact that you're continuing the pain, the fact that you keep doing 5 more crunches, 4 more, 3 more, 2 more, 1 more, and then finally you're like that is the most empowering moment, I think, for me personally, but I think for any human being who wants to tap into the best version of themselves and take their life to another level, is to be able to be okay with hurting temporarily and being able to push yourself past that temporary pain for a greater reward. I think right there, that is the act of self-love. And when we can really adopt that as a truth, nothing, and I mean nothing, can never hold you back at that point.
Mm, and that just really like wrap up around like this beautiful journey that we just went on um, for the past 50 minutes together, is that really the any point in your life, if we take like what you're learning when you're working out, and pushing your body and it's uncomfortable, ultimately the best people, like the most successful people we have in our world that are making huge impacts in the world, um, you have to get into that uncomfortable space and just know, like, during these times, no matter what's going on in your life, resiliency needs to be something that we really stand by. Like, you're building that resiliency that no matter what comes your way, you're going to get right back up and keep moving. And how to do that is to what we talked about before we hopped on today, is what's really important to you, finding your motivation, and finding what my partner always says is these mini motivations, like if it's just, oh, it's sunny outside, or like, oh, it's I know that this, like, just finding those little motivations, to get yourself moving and grooving and find what's important to you. And so I love this uh, different viewpoint on self-love that you've given us today, because I know, just as a female and in the spiritual community, it's just like, be easy and gentle on yourself, which there's a balance with all of it, but I do know that there's a lot of benefit, and not that sometimes you do have to literally force yourself, because you're literally paving new neural pathways. It's going to be uncomfortable, but just knowing, like, this vision that you have, it's not just a vision, it's a gift of what's possible for you.
Yeah,
And really committing to, like, pushing yourself just a little bit more every day, and just doing your best a little bit more in one area of your life, and it'll make significant changes after 365 days.
exactly. I mean, and you're absolutely right. Like, we definitely have to be easy on ourselves. And I think, because when I hear people say that, be easy on yourself, like, I will be the first to always say, hey, be easy with yourself. Is that is I correlate that to the word responsibility, meaning how we respond to our situations in life. So, like, when we are in those challenging times, be easy on yourself, to the idea that, let's say you don't wake up in the time you want to wake up. Let's say you do hit the snooze. Let's say you do eat the cake. Let's say you do quit the workout. Be easy on yourself then. You don't got to beat yourself up about it. It is a process, it's a journey. Because when you eat the cake, beating yourself up about it isn't going to make the cake empty from your stomach any faster. So you're absolutely right. There has to be a balance, and it's understanding when and how and what does being easy on ourselves look like, so that we're still holding ourselves accountable, but at the same time, we're not guilting ourselves either just because we wake up at 7 or 8 or 9. No, if anything, awesome, you woke up at 9, yay. Now, how do we get you to wake up at 5 or 4? Right? Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, yes, let's be easy on yourself. And now, how do we make that happen? And then guess what? The next day you wake up at 9 again. Awesome, yay. How do we get you to wake up at 4 or 5? Next day, you woke up at 9 again. Awesome. Now, how do we get you to wake up at 4 or 5? Eventually, you will wake up at 4 or 5. Eventually, you won't the cake won't have any control over your taste buds and your cravings. Eventually, you'll be able to get through the full workout. Eventually, you'll be able to make it all happen. But it's a journey, it's not a race. So I agree 100%.
Oh, I love this so much. Thank you so much, Andre, for coming on and sharing your wonderful knowledge and your wisdom that you've gained from your life. And yeah, I'm just really grateful to have you in my life and grateful for the work and the light work that you're doing here on planet Earth, especially right now.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. Like, it was an honor to be able to, converse with you and just, you know, just to be able to share together what we both know and the value we both can bring. So, hopefully it serves some people who are watching, and you know, hopefully we can do it again soon.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And for the people that are listening, where can they find you if they're trying to if they're like, I want to learn more about this guy, I want to work with this guy?
Yeah, yeah. You can either find me on Facebook or Instagram. You can find me on Facebook at Andre Mills, or you can find me on Instagram at Dre Mills Official. So you can find me on there, and just send me a DM, add me as a friend, send me a message. Pretty friendly, and let's just have a conversation.
I love it. Oh, thank you, Andre.